I've got some bad news for everybody out there. The President of the United States doesn't know how to read a graph. The President of the United States of America doesn't seem to be able to understand basic statistical mathematics.
The point is, because we are so much better at testing than any other country in the world, we show more cases.
The figure I look at is death. And death is going up now.
Okay,
and it's 1,000 a day.
If you look at death...
Yeah, it's going up again.
Let's look.
Daily death.
Take a look at some of these charts.
I'd love to.
We're going to look.
Let's look.
And if you look at death...
Yeah. It's started to go up again.
One. Well, right here...
I'm sorry, what was that? If you look at deaths per what? The president has just trailed off in the middle of explaining what the graph depicts. He doesn't even get halfway there. He won't figure it out the whole time that he searches that page furiously with his dilated eyes. Is the President of the United States on something?
Let's look.
And if you look at death...
Yeah. It's started to go up again.
One. Well, right here, the United States is lowest in numerous categories.
Look at him throw that insane Hail Mary and pretend to read that the United States is lowest in multiple categories. You can see for yourself, the graph contains one category. It's simply the proportion of confirmed COVID deaths to positive cases. It's the percentage rate of death per case. The president still doesn't understand that. He hasn't figured out the category. And there's a very real chance that he's mistaken the abbreviated months at the bottom of the graph for categories. This graph is about percentages. You won't hear the word percentage ever spoken by the president here. And you won't hear any numbers.
Here, the United States is lowest in numerous categories. We're lower than the world.
Lower than the world?
Lower than
what is that?
Europe.
So fortunately, we find out here that the president can at least read a one-dimensional chart of sorts. He knows to look for the word United States, and the word closest to that is world, and he sees a line pointing to it. He's starting to get a picture that this chart is showing that the United States is better than the world and better than Europe at something. We still don't know what. The journalist doesn't know what, because Trump hasn't been able to interpret the graph because he doesn't know how to read a graph.
We're lower than the world.
Lower than the world?
Lower than
what is that?
Europe.
In what?
Look.
In what?
Take a look. Right here. Here's case death.
Oh, you're doing death as a proportion of cases. I'm talking about death as a proportion of population.
Look at your president's face. In the end, he has to just hand the graph over to Jonathan Swan, hoping that he can't read it. Look at the astonishment when he realizes that he's not only in the presence of an enemy, but of a Jedi Master who can read a simple graph all the way through.
Population. That's where the US is really bad. Much worse than South Korea, Germany, etc.
You can't do that. You have
Why
to go,
can't I do that?
You have to go by where, look, here is the United States. You have to go by the cases.
So after looking at another graph and having the first one explained to him by Jonathan Swan, he seems to be vaguely grasping what's going on with these numbers that they're talking about. What the president doesn't seem to know is that both graphs actually depict the same phenomenon. It's just the line graph tracks the percentage death rate over time. When Jonathan Swan questions the president on his exclusive reliance on this data, failing to mention the number of people who have died, the president tries to dissuade the journalist from even talking about those numbers. The president, who himself doesn't even understand his own graph. He offers no explanation.
Why not as a proportion of population?
What it says is when you have somebody that where there's a case, the people that live from those cases.
It's surely a relevant statistic to say if the US has X population and X percentage of death of that population versus South Korea.
No, because you have to go by the cases.
Well, look at
Across the world, in the United States included, every natural disaster, every war, every pandemic is measured in amount of deaths and deaths per capita, because there's no more significant unit of measurement than the human life. Each human life is of equal and utmost value. The president doesn't know what per capita means, and he can't read a graph. Somebody handed him these graphs, and he's now using them to try to muddy the waters about the coronavirus pandemic.
It's surely a relevant statistic to say if the US has X population and X percentage of death of that population versus South Korea.
No, because you have to go by the cases.
Well, look at South Korea, for example. 51 million population, 300 deaths. It's like, it's crazy compared to...
You don't know that.
I do. It's on
you don't know that.
You think they're faking their statistics? South Korea?
I won't get into that because they have a very good relationship with the country. But you don't know that. And they have spikes. Look, here's
Germany, low, 9,000.
Here's one right here, United States. You take the number of cases. Now look, we're last, meaning we're first.
Look at him question the journalist's data about South Korea. He either doesn't realize or doesn't care that the data that he just supplied in graph form relies on the same statistics.
I don't know what we're first in. As a what?
Take a look. Again, it's cases.
And
we have cases because of the testing.
1,000 Americans are dying a day. But I understand on cases it's different.
No, but you're not reporting it correctly, Jonathan.
I think I am, but...
If you take a look at this other chart, look, this is our testing, I believe. This is the testing, Yeah,
we do more tests.
No, wait a minute. Well, don't we get credit for that? And because we do more tests, we have more cases.
This is one of the dumbest arguments that I've ever heard. It doesn't matter if you do 5 million tests or 100 million tests. The amount of cases that you have in a given region is not going to change. Testing detects cases. It doesn't create cases.
In other words, we test more. We have. Now take a look. The top one. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. The top, Jonathan.
If hospital rates were going down and deaths were going down, I'd say terrific. You deserve to be praised for testing, but they're all going up.
You know, they very rarely talk.
60,000 Americans are in hospital.
If you watch the news or read the papers, they usually talk about new cases, new cases, new cases.
I'm talking about death.
Well, you look at death. Death is way down from.
For the 10th time, but more and more forcefully, he declaims it's cases, as if that means anything, as if it's some sort of final elaboration. The phrase it's cases in this context is so ambiguous as to be completely devoid of meaning. The president at this point is visibly frustrated, he's shaking, and he flips the journalist off. Amazingly, he doesn't understand what per capita means.
When you say per capita, there's many per capitas. It's like per capita relative to what?
This interview demonstrates that the administration is trying to use data in order to downplay the significance of the coronavirus. And this interview also demonstrated that the President of the United States of America can't read a graph. We have needed for him to have read so many graphs by this point.